We are going to record. Here we go. People are going to start trickling in here. Hey, Kelly, how are you?
Yeah,
Welcome.
Kelly's first.
There
Sorry. I'm super
we go.
excited.
Brandon, you're like a whole new
Michelle's
level
here.
of energy right now.
Sorry, I'm way over caffeinated at this point.
I
It's
love it.
really
I
a
love it.
problem.
Okay, so a little bit of housekeeping as folks are still coming in. We are so excited that everyone's here. Tell us where you're coming from and like maybe one thing you're really excited to learn today. Make sure your chat is turned to everyone. I'm very bad about keeping it panelists and attendees myself. So make sure you have it turned on to everyone. I am coming from Lubbock, Texas. Next week, I will be coming from Dallas, Texas. So very exciting. Brendan, where are you based out of again?
I currently look like I'm inside of a weird cave, but generally just outside of Chicago.
Well,
So
there we go.
it's Northwest Indiana, but if I say Northwest Indiana, people are like, cool, generic Midwest. Chicago like lives in people's brains as like, all right, I know where that is, you know?
Yep, absolutely. Oh, we've got folks from Phoenix. I'm originally from Phoenix. Very happy to have y'all. Also, we've got a lot of Canadian folks in here. This is great. We will give it a few more minutes. If you are coming from New York City, I'm supposed to be planning an event out there in like 2 weeks. So if you have recommendations on restaurants, please let me know. Do you have any, Brendan? There's just so many
For
options.
New
It's so
York
tough.
City,
Yeah.
okay, well, I mean, here's the thing about New York City is it's like where though, because
Right.
Brooklyn alone is the fourth largest city in the United States. Like if it was its own city, it'd be
Yeah.
number four. So I think people, not you specifically, but I think people are like not aware of the incredible scale of that place.
You
Where
mean
are you
me?
going to
I am
be?
not aware. Just all over. I mean, all over Manhattan, I guess. It's
Okay,
just massive. Yeah.
that's how that like like real. That's like zooms in quite a bit.
Just a tiny bit.
Okay, so
But
I don't think they have like a restaurant, but I will tell you my favorite spot. There's this place called Kolkata Chai, that makes chai the way that you're supposed to make it, not the way that like I would get it from Starbucks.
as I was like, not Starbucks way.
And it's so good. It's so good, and it's such like a cultural center point in the like neighborhood that they're in. It's in Manhattan, so you should
Oh
definitely go.
yeah. Yeah, that sounds amazing. Awesome.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, sounds good. Cool. Well, we will get started here. I know Brendan's got a lot of stuff. I know we've got some folks trickling in that are just wrapping up some calls. So yeah, I'm incredibly excited for this. As always, if you've got questions, drop them into the chat. We'll be asking them during the conversation, or there's even a Q&A box at the very bottom of your screen. If you want to ask anonymously, you name it, you've got options. So I'm going to hop on mute and just listen to this amazingness, and I'll interject with the questions as they come in, and we'll just go from here. You got to unmute yourself though before you.
I got it. I got excited again every time, every single. So what I was trying to say was this is, and I said this to Katie before we started, right? Like this is one of the first times that I'm really pulling back a lot of like how I do what I do. Like here are the playbooks. My marketing brain is like, I wish there was like 10,000 people watching this right now, but like the like don't steal all my shit part of my brain is like really psyched that there are not 10,000 people here watching this right now. Because my goal is to like really talk you through like how I think about this stuff, and then at the end especially like answer questions. I don't share a lot of these things lightly. There's no real secrets, but like the process and the way I think about things is a lot of, I think, what makes us unique as marketers, right? We can all see the marketing happening, right? I can see your SEO strategy. I can see your ads. I can see your events. I can see all of these things. I can see from at least the outside looking in, which is way more than you get than like product, right? Like you can't see how a company builds product unless you work there. It's really hard. Marketing is a little bit easier. So we can see a lot of these things, but sharing like how I think about stuff is what I'm probably most excited today, and really like why I called this Growth That Works, right? I also feel like I'm super catfishing people with, I got to get a new, like I have such long hair now. It's so crazy.
Honestly, I didn't mean, I wasn't going to say anything, but I was like, does he have a man bun? And this picture does not Right.
I don't want to let it down because then we'd have to watch me put it back up for 5 minutes, but like it is so long, like it's shoulder length and very luxurious. I just need to stop. Yeah, I'm still hitting people with this solid like 2018 photo, pre-pandemic Brendan, when he was happy and hopeful. Speaking of which, like here's the premise of a lot of this is I'm going to keep it conversational. I'm going to keep it like this. I'm not going to go presentation mode or anything like that. I want this to feel more like colleagues talking to each other. And this is kind of how I present when I present things to colleagues. So, but I do think like as an industry, not any of you or me or anybody here, I'm not trying to like call anybody out, but like we're really fucking up. Like we really are. Right. And I found this out a day ago. I saw it literally was like a punch in the teeth. I made this post on LinkedIn. I was just like, hey, if I was your head of content, here's what I would do. And I noticed two things. Number one was an overwhelming amount of comments about one thing and a lack of comments about something else. Here's the first part. All these comments about also, Katie, I get a little cursy when I get excited. What are the rules? Like how much
You're good. You're good. You have free reign. Whatever you want.
Sweet. But like I got all these fucking comments about distribution, like over and over and over. Distribution, repurposing. Well, how do we repurpose? You're not doing distribution, you're doing a podcast. How would you distribute the podcast? How would you build the audience for the podcast? And I was like, oh my God, like we've lost the plot. Hear me so clearly when I say this. You cannot repurpose something that had no purpose to begin with. You cannot repurpose something that did not have a purpose to begin with. And if the purpose of your podcast is we should have a podcast, that's not it. Like you didn't get it. You didn't get the point of what you were trying to do. But I got all these comments about it. And I know they're well-meaning. I know they are. I'm certainly, because I got people's faces on here and I like and know a lot of these people personally. I'm not trying to like dump on anybody, right? But I got the same question today when I asked about like what should I talk about on this workshop. And it's a very well-meaning question. And I think this is closer to the right question of how much should we focus on creation versus distribution, right? And my answer to a lot of this is literally this. Just think about a world like we all, B2B marketing is boring and it's boring. It's boring because we don't take enough time to make something meaningful. And I get why that happens. Like between you and me and Katie and everybody else here, like it's a lot of times because our leadership doesn't give us the time. We don't have enough time to make something good. We got to get X number of blogs out the door and 27 podcast episodes. And did you do the 5 webinars this month? And it's like numbers, right? We got to hit our numbers. And I get that. But like, what if it was good enough to be repurposed forever? And I got pushback on that in the comments too of like, yeah, but it's changing. Everything's changing so fast. Like what could be repurposed forever? A lot of things, right? Like Ryan Holiday just made a career writing about an ancient Greek philosophy. Like dude was a marketer for a t-shirt company. And now he talks about stoicism. And because of that goofball, like I got Marcus Aurelius behind me and like Latin phrases tattooed on my arms. Like there are things that are timeless and we don't always have to feel like we have to move fast and break things. I also note the second piece of it is like the part nobody asked about until today. I got one comment on this. Most people just skip over this part. I'd spend 30 minutes each day interacting in our community and another 30 minutes on a call with a customer. Nobody asked about that until today when finally somebody was like, what would you ask the customers? We're going to talk about this today. I'm going to tell you all of like the why and the how behind these things. Because I think we're so obsessed with repurposing, redistributing, atomizing. There's a lot of different names for it. We're so obsessed with that we've forgotten that we're in service of customers. Yes, we're in service of the business, but we're especially in service of customers. Here's my process. This is the framework we're going to talk about today. Is what does community-led marketing look like? What does revenue-focused content look like? What does demand-focused content look like? Those are different. Demand and revenue have 2 different focuses. And then like, how do we build our authority? Not just like backlinks and stuff. Yes, those matter. We'll talk about those. But you'll also notice, like, for those of you that know me, my background is SEO. Like, that's how I came up. I was an SEO guy. I fought hard to be a known quantity in the SEO industry. And now I'm like, it's a distribution channel, right? Like, you mature beyond these like channel specific things. I think it's really important, and I want to say this, and just because I'm punchy and aggressive, I promise this all comes from a place of love. I talk to you all the same way I talk to like my actual friends. But like, let's talk about playbooks, because I'm going to tell you my stuff. But here's like what we're not going to do today. Today, we're not going to do this meme, right? Where I share something and somebody is like, whether you're here live or on the replay, like, I'm like, hey, I made this. This is really cool, right? And you're like, oh, you made this? And I'm like, yeah, here you go. Take a look at it. And then you're like, I made this. This is my ideas now, right? I'm really going to share with you exactly how I do all of these things. My only request is that you understand that one-to-one, this doesn't work for you. One-to-one, this does not work for your company, right? Like, you have to make your own stuff. You have to make these things work for you. So taking it wholesale and being like, this is my strategy now, probably a big mistake. Let's talk about community-led marketing. The way I think about this is, in times of economic, what did I say? Uncertainty, turmoil, if you will. Your community is what keeps you afloat. It really, really is. Community does a lot of things for a business. Because community does a lot of things for its members, right? But what it does for the business, I'm sure Katie could tell you even more about this than me, but like, the way I think about this is, it gives you insights into like what people care about. Like, yeah, you can see that stuff in the LinkedIn comments, but like the stuff you get out of actually having a decent community is leaps and bounds beyond what you would get from like public. I talk to people about building community, and they're like, what social listening tools should I use? And I'm like, that's the wrong question. You don't need a social listening tool. Like, you don't need the quant side of things. Like, you need the qualitative side of it. You have to be closer to it. Also, important caveat here, community does not equal audience. Audience is where you help your audience, right? They come to you for help. Community is where they help each other. I'll say that again. Audience is where you help them. They come to you for help. Community is where they help each other. You're Homer Simpson fading into the bushes. You're barely there, right? You're just there to facilitate. We'll talk about how that can work. So the question then becomes, if we're not there, if it's not audience and we're not there to market to them, like, you've all been in those Slack communities, right? And I'm saying this like very like, right, like, I'm here doing this with demand for a reason. Like, that place is not one of those places, but you've all been in them. I don't need to put the names on the screen. You know what I'm talking about, where they're like, join our community of blah, blah, blah SaaS marketers. And you join and you're getting hammered by an SDR and they're hitting you in the DMs, and every single thing in there is promo. And you're like, fuck this, I'm out. Like, there's no value here for me, right? I'm not here to be marketed to. So if we make it their place to help each other, how do we do marketing? That's part two. The first is we have to make it their place to help each other. I posted this not too long ago on LinkedIn as well. I'm a part of a Slack group for a $2,000 a year. How do I talk about this? Essentially like product community, right? It teaches you how to build product. It's great for product managers. Everybody loves it. It costs $2,000 a year. Most of you can read between the lines. I saw a friend of mine who's a VP of marketing post a question there. No replies. That same person posted the question in my community and got 8 unique replies from 8 members. Everybody bags on like free communities. Like, whoa, when you pay for them, they're more curated. No, it's just that some communities are communities of takers and some are communities of givers. And it's really fucking hard to make your community a community of givers. You have to be an asshole all the time and confront the takers, like delete stuff and be like, hey, here's like, in the community I run in All In, If I see you make an ask of the community, you're like, hey, does anybody want to hop on a call? Hey, can anybody look at my thing? I'll look and see, like, publicly, how many other people's questions have you answered? How many threads have you been involved in? 99% of the time, I don't see anything. People are just coming in there to link dump, right? No problem. I'll delete your stuff and I'll just say, like, hey, we like to have a 10-to-1 ratio. You're helping people 10 times for every one time you make an ask of the community. And I get pushback and people get mad at me and they want to argue, and that's fine. Like, it's just not for them. But if you want to make it their place where they help each other, you have to focus on that. And you can do it. This is not my first rodeo either, right? Like, I have All In, but in the past, I was the community lead for a 40,000 person Facebook group. When I was early on in business and I had a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu company, I literally had a group of people who would just review gis, and I ran that, right? It was super fun. But community has always been a part of what I do because I knew it brought me closer to the customer. I'll say this, I don't have a slide for this, but I do think our secret weapon as marketers is proximity to the customer. We can be closer to the customer than any other part of the org. Even support, even customer success, we can be closer to them, and that's how you win within a company. You become the voice of righteousness. So that's so aggressive, but like, you're the source of truth, because if, like, if Katie and I are in a meeting and somebody's like, and our boss is like, that's a dumb idea, and I'm like, oh, well, I just heard it from 7 customers, and here's the slide with them saying that. Like, I don't care, but that's what they said. Like, it puts you on the side of the table with the customers, which sometimes doesn't make you a lot of friends, right? But like, it does put you in the right place for the business. And I think having the tightest proximity is super important in marketing, and also is kind of our job. So how do we make it their place to help each other? Here's my checklist. I really hate when adults read slides to other adults. I'm trying not to do that, but I do think it's worth like talking about some of these. This is my actual freaking checklist, like checking in with members who have not been active. If I have a list of members in a spreadsheet and I look and I type their name in there and it says they haven't done anything public, I should check in with them, right? If I know they're working on something cool, I should check in with them. Hey, how's that thing going that you posted about last month? Connecting people, having a list of like, here's what people do in their job functions, connecting them personally and professionally. It was so fun when people used to join All In. I was such a nerd. I would take people's intro posts and like put it in a spreadsheet next to their name. And then when like somebody else would join and they're like, oh, I'm from Italy. And I'm like, oh, here's 6 other people from Italy. And I would tag them. All of a sudden, this is where they support each other. This is where they made the friends. This is their home, right? So like doing stuff like that, like what is the ROI of that? How many MQLs does that give us? I don't know. Like, I don't know. But is it like the right thing to do? Does that give you a defensible moat in your business? Absolutely. And then there's like welcoming people, sending out a weekly wrap-up email, getting guests and doing AMAs, right? Like, what are we doing right now? I also love ideas of like demo days, where everybody comes and shares something cool that they've been working on. They all screen share, we haven't done this for All In, but I still think it's a really cool idea. I think more people should do this, especially for like non-marketing communities, right? Like if you have a community of engineers, be like, what did you ship? Like, what's the coolest thing you shipped? Right. And they would all come in and talk about it. And so like, there's so many cool ideas depending on different types of communities. I like doing members of the month. I love doing gifting. I use Loop and Tie. It's spelled out loopandtie.com for all of our gifting stuff. Just like sending people stuff for being awesome, and not like, it's not marketing. I'm not now posting that on, I'm not, the goal is not to get them to click something or do a thing. And it's also not your like Sendoso gift card stuff, which works. Don't get me, I'm agnostic on that. But like, this is just like purely gifting because I care about you. You're adding a lot to the community. Let me like give you something cool. Katie, anything you'd add to this list?
No, I honestly, I've just been like so tickled listening to this because obviously it's what I do. But I think where it's really interesting for marketers is I think there's a lot of pressure for marketers to drive leads and drive demand. and trying to figure out how to show like the KPIs on it. And so I think it's just a really good reminder that a lot of that will actually come naturally and organically if you're like building a strong foundation of a community too. Like a lot of the business that we've gotten from the demand community isn't from, pitching or really promoting metadata that much. So it's been really cool to kind of see that. So yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
100%. The other thing that I think is kind of like my secret weapon, and this is where we get into the like, don't wholesale swipe this. I have told one other person about this that hasn't had like been in it, and they literally like turn around and launch their own insiders club. And I'm like, don't steal the name and all the questions. Like, don't one-to-one it, right? Make it yours. But this is what we would send out to all in members of like, hey, definitely mandatory Schitt's Creek GIF at the top. Also, all my early emails from my community, all the subject lines were Drake lyrics, and everyone had a Schitt's Creek GIF at the beginning. There is no reason for that other than I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny that I sent out 20 emails, 20 weekly emails, and they were always Drake lyrics. That's just funny to me. Like, and that's funny stuff. I don't know, like, be a little bit silly. But I just said in here, like, the only way you get the answers to this is by participating. This is cool. This is special. This is something you could charge money for, right? I know people that run e-commerce communities that literally are just this type of thing. You pay $500 a month and you share your secrets and you get everybody else's secrets anonymous, right? That's a really powerful thing if you can build that level of trust. But if you can also offer it for free, it's really cool. So I just asked this, like, what's your best win? Like, tell me how it happened. What are you going to implement next? Things like that. What's something you want help with? And then I would just send out an email to everybody who participated being like, here's all the other cool stuff. If you missed it, you got to get in next month. That sort of like that insiders club gets people to share with each other a little more openly. Because again, it's anonymous, but you can be like, hey, we ran this ad campaign and we did this other thing, or like we launched a podcast and here's what didn't go well. Like they're more apt to share those things because they want everybody else's insights that they're not sharing on LinkedIn, that they're not sharing publicly. And again, it brings us back like full circle to this piece. It's 30 minutes a day in your community, at least, right? Like if I worked at Metadata and I was not Katie, like I would still be spending at least 30 minutes in there reading everything. There should be no unread stuff. You don't have to participate, right? But you should absolutely be reading every single thing people post and keeping that pulse check, right? Reading the replies, seeing how they talk to each other. If there's a person who asks a question and all the replies are opposite of what you think it should be, that's a red flag. Like you've lost it a little bit of where things are headed. Like something, like there's something there, right? And that's all we want to pick up on is something there. Because we're not going to let the SEO tools guide our strategy. We need our customers to do it. And if we also have the added benefit of a community of people that are helping each other, let's keep an eye on that. I think that's the biggest piece for this first part. Second piece of the framework is revenue-focused content. So again, my background is SEO, but I really believe in leaving the keyword research behind and treating SEO as a distribution channel for things we know we need to make. That's the biggest secret. That's how you get this like hilariously large MQL lift, right? Yes, they're leads, right? They're not all going to turn into SQL, like whatever. But if traffic goes up 4% and MQLs go up almost 3,000%, like you're doing something right. You're creating things that are resonating a little bit differently. Here's my playbook. Honest to God, I'd find 10 to 15 great fit customers. This is something I learned from Benjamin Elias, my former boss at ActiveCampaign. I've talked to him numerous times about this. He is a master at getting on conversations with customers. When I was at ActiveCampaign, transparently, I was like, can I talk to customers? And they were like, we already have a customer marketing team, so we're all set there. And I'm like, I'm just trying to do my freaking job. And they said no. So I just went on LinkedIn and was like, who do I know that uses ActiveCampaign? Boom, you're my customer advisory board now. You're who I ask about things. Like I don't need permission. I can go find people using our product. It doesn't matter, right? Oh, we already asked too much of our customer. Okay, like nobody's going to churn because you asked for 15 minutes of their time, right? Especially an end user. But go find those 10 to 15 great fit customers, right? People who are really happy with the product, high NPS, really solid revenue. Do customer interviews, right? Doesn't have to be a crazy framework. I'm not even going to give you the framework. Go to contentlift.io, I think it is. And you can go there. There's a course that's like $100. It's so nominally priced. Or I think you can even download a list of like 70 questions too to ask people. This is great. This is literally the beginning of the document, right? Like, just use those questions. I'm not going to pretend like I've reinvented the wheel. If you're familiar with jobs to be done, you can do that type of framework. Literally, you're just going to have these conversations. You're going to transcribe them all. What you're looking for is these like milestone moments. If you're B2B, you're looking for like what happened in their business before they made a decision, and like what preceded that. You have to create this like timeline, and people, when they describe their thoughts and stuff, tend to be all over the place. So like, get a transcription, go through, highlight it all, color code it, stuff you're looking for, things that push them into making a decision, pulled them into, and then like habits they had, and then like fears. And now we're starting to understand like levers to pull with people, not to like manipulate them, but like what pushes them into making a decision, what pulled them, was it a fear of something, like that sort of stuff. Put them into columns and then start bucketing them together. You're going to find out, even in those 10 to 15 customers, like, okay, we've got these 3 buckets of like push factors, these 3 buckets of pull factors, 7 different fears that we kind of had bucketed things into. And now we start to have a better idea of what to create content around. We need to address these fears. We need to address these like habits. We need to address these things that can pull people into stuff, right? All of a sudden, it's not like, how many keywords can we find in the SEO tools that have our, keyword in it? Well, we're a CRM software, so let's write about every keyword that has CRM in it. Like, I've lived through that. That's a nightmare. That's a terrible idea. It will do nothing for your business. But if you actually talk to all your best CRM customers and really turn that qualitative data into quantitative, all of a sudden you have a really good roadmap for content that, again, and also like builds you a defensible spot in your company, right? Like, they're not going to, as defensible as things can be, right? But usually the company's not going to fire their customer whisperer, right? Their source of truth with the customers. If you are closest to the customer, you also, in a lot of ways, bulletproof your career, which I love. I'm always down to help people with.
So I did get a question.
Yeah.
Thank you for sending it through the community, because they wanted to stay anonymous. But the question is about, while all this is awesome, like, people, I don't think anyone's going to argue with any of this. But at the end of the day, like, there are still KPIs that people have to align to. What KPIs would you recommend these marketers just suggest that they start aligning to kind of help support some of these efforts as well?
Okay, great question. So I think a couple, like, I would look at, like, do we get to make the KPIs? I feel like I've always been like told the KPIs, and then I have to like figure that crap out. I think if you're at an executive level and you can kind of like set KPIs, then that's great. There's a million ways to do attribution. There's a million ways, like, doesn't matter. Software-based, self-reported, Z, X, Y, I don't even know. Like, there's so many different ways to do it. First touch, last touch, whatever you want. The key thing around KPIs is they are KPIs, OKRs, whatever we're using, it's about they are a proxy. They are not a thing. They are a thing that represents the thing. And the thing they represent is alignment. Are we aligned with sales? Are we aligned with our CEO or our founder? Or both of them if they're different people? Like, are we aligned? And I think that's the biggest thing. So it matters. I'm not ducking the question. I'll give you some here in a little bit. But I think the best answer I can give you is that this is about aligning with them and getting buy-in from them before saying, like, I think these are the 5 KPIs. With that said, the way that I think about this is a couple different ways. Number one, like, we have to start with revenue, right? And that's where things get messy and you get into like attribution and stuff like that. My goal is a marketer is to do 2 things. Number one, earn as many touch points with people as possible, and then earn as much trust with people as possible. I just put together, I wish I would put it in here. I just put together a document from the clients that I work with called like how to measure the ROI of this engagement. And I kind of like moved them through phases of different things, like how much of this did we actually do the thing we said we were going to do, stuff like that. But I think like there's leading indicators, there's traffic and clicks and whatever else. But like, I think you and I both know for some of these things, like Katie, that if somebody came to you and was like, hey, how many clicks to our website have you driven from the demand community? I would ask them to pass me whatever they're smoking, because I would also like some, because like that's not a thing that doesn't make sense. Or like, how many clicks did you drive from social media is something our poor social media person at a previous company I worked at used to get asked, right? You should be driving this many clicks to the website. Why? Like, that's not the goal of this channel. So I think like having it be channel specific also matters. And I think also on top of that, like a lot of these strategies do like double, triple duty, right? So with like when you have community led marketing, you're pulling in partners, you're pulling in influencers and amplifiers, you're pulling in all these other things. I don't know. I just revenue. Like I want to see in revenue, when I look back, when I take a cohort of people, here's what I want to look at. I want to be able to take a cohort of our customers. I want to be able to look at in whatever software we use. And I want to be able to see like, when do they, like how much have they engaged with our content? What events did they come to? That sort of thing. And I want to see that these are earning touch points with our best fit customers. Because frankly, like if I have a hypothesis that like, hey, we should create content around this thing, and it's like, hey, that drove a bunch of leads, but like our best fit customers have never, like they'd never heard of it. Oh, well, there's something there. Like I need to dig into that. So a lot of this looks like looking at best fit customers, seeing if they've engaged with it, that sort of thing. I think if you have like a large PLG motion, like we had at Active Campaign, where it is a trial or freemium, and there's a lot of like product-led growth loops in there. I don't know. I think I would be more comfortable going with leading indicators, because we need more volume to make something like that work, right? Like we need a large amount of traffic. If you have like a sales-led SaaS organization, and you're maybe only need 10 to 20 new customers per month or per quarter, or I don't know, per year, things are going to look way different in terms of what your KPIs are. So I think I don't know. I don't mean to duck the question, Katie, but I think that that's such a nuanced question. And I think a lot of people, like you'll see LinkedIn posts where people are like, here's your KPIs of like, it's revenue and it's pipeline generation. And it's like, we're just backing up a very linear funnel kind of thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Sorry. I feel like that was like such a shitty non-answer, but like, it's that, I don't know. It's honestly the truth. And like, I hope you can hear it in my voice. Like that's hard. Like that's a hard thing. That's something that I wrestle with all the clients that I work with, is like, how do we measure this? And my question is like, how are you measuring things now? Can we fit into that? Right. And if we can't, we're going to require like a culture change around metrics and sources of truth. Like that change management is a big deal. So yeah. But I also don't want, I mean, if like the question we're really asking is like, is this shit going to make us money? Yeah. And like, how do we track that? A lot of it, I would make sure that we have good enough tracking and enough touch points of like, are we asking people when they book a demo or sign up for the product, are we forcing them to tell us how they heard about us? I think you should. Let's do that. Next, let's also have some sort of software-based attribution where we can at least see some touch points that have happened along the way. Also, is our sales team or our success team, if we don't have a sales team, also asking like at the back end, like, hey, why'd you decide to become a customer? Did you experience any of like the marketing stuff we did ahead of, like stuff like, you don't have to be that upfront about it, but those sort of nuanced questions will go a long way. I very much lean more into the qualitative side of things, but I understand for like large organizations that have a large amount of customers and a huge audience, that's challenging to do. But I think you have to align incentives internally, because like I know, for instance, like I'll say one more anecdotal thing and then we can keep running through here. But I know it was very hard to get salespeople to fill out the crap that was like, how did you hear about us? I was like, this really helps the marketing team. And they were like, the leads aren't good. And I'm like, cool, but you're not telling me where the good leads came from. Like, you got to ask them, and then you got to take the 4.2 seconds to like type that into the sales, like to the field in the thing. Please, like, help me help you, please. That sort of like, there's a lot of internal change management that can be hard around that, but it's definitely worth it. Let's talk about this next piece about demand focused content. So revenue focused content is where we're looking, I don't want to say bottom of funnel, but in market, right? Like, this is going to appeal to people in market. We're going to pull in traffic from search. It doubles its sales enablement. It's great. Demand focus is our like not yet maybe in market, right? We could call it top of funnel, but it's not. We're just talking about creating demand. And also this other piece that I bolded here is the other thing, as marketers, this is so underrated, building a talent pipeline, right? You're not just creating demand from customers, you're also creating demand from other marketers that are like, ooh, I want to work with that person. Everybody here right now, there is a person that if you saw their name pop up on your phone and they called you and were like, hey, I'd love to chat about what working together might look like, you would 100% clear your calendar. You'd be like, cool, we're talking right now? Right now? Great. Right? You all know who that person is. They could be a CEO, a founder, a CMO, even just another person you respect, right? That's maybe at the same level as you, that you would jump at the chance to work with. They have started building a talent pipeline. You should also be thinking about this. This demand-focused content is not just about customer generation, it's also about talent generation. And arguably, as we all elevate ourselves in our career, we're all limited by how well we can hire, by our ability to send a couple emails and be like, hey, I would love to have, like, that's the success. If you listen to any of like the CMO podcasts and stuff like that, ultimately they're like, oh, I hired this person, we brought that person in, we got somebody great doing this. Like, it comes down to your ability to be around great people. Even if you don't hire them, it's, again, building that network of peers is really valuable. Here's the playbook. I put a little finger pointing at this first one because it's very much like draw two circles, if you're familiar with this meme, draw two circles, then like draw the rest of the owl. Just create content IP. I'll talk about this a little more. I don't have like a slide for it, but we'll come back to it. We're going to create content IP, and then we're going to talk about the problem, the first roadblock to the problem, a template or framework to solve, and I'll give you examples of each of these, a template or framework to solve the problem, a customer case study, and a high-level interesting insight. So what is content IP? Content IP is creating intellectual property around a problem that your customers have. We all love to create categories, right? Like at ActiveCampaign, we try to become customer experience automation. What? Like, does anybody want that? I don't want it. I don't even know what that is. But most people didn't even know we were email marketing and we were marketing automation. They certainly did not know that we provided enterprise level marketing automation for businesses of every size. That's the tagline, not customer experience automation. We didn't need to create sorry, for everybody who loves category creation. A lot of times it misses, right? Where we would be better spent with our time is creating IP around actual problems people have. You all, if we asked you to like type your biggest marketing problems into the chat, you all could put those in there. And I guarantee the people that gave you words for what those problems were get your attention, and in a lot of cases get your money, right? I can call this out. Like, you know who I think is like really good at this in our space that a lot of you are familiar with is Chris Walker from Refine Labs. He's awesome at it. He's so good. Like, he started talking about the attribution mirage. Oh, chef's kiss. It's so good, right? It was a problem we all knew about, and everybody's like, not new. Yeah, but he gave you words for it, and then never had to talk about the fact that he, like, his agency like ran Facebook ads, right? And that's like most of what they did, right? Now, that's not like a dig, but like they were an advertising agency, but they don't spend all their time talking about advertising. They spend their time talking about the attribution mirage and dark social. They are great at creating phrases for the problems of what makes their audience's jobs hard. If we all do this, all of a sudden the attention and the money goes in that direction. When you give people words for the problems they have, all of a sudden they're ready to spend money with you. Can I give you 2 more examples of content IP? One of my favorites right now, I was just talking to the VP of marketing at Superside, Amrita, and she was telling me about, I forget who it was, the difference, like we all know what lifespan is, but now this new word has entered called health span, where it's like, yeah, cool to live to be 100, but like if from 80 to 100 you can barely move, that's a really crappy quality of life. So let's stop focusing on like lifespan and let's start focusing on health span. That's interesting, right? Am I able to move and function and enjoy my life? Like, when does that end? Let's push that as far as it can go. Another one that I heard on the radio, and this is like B2C, but it was for somebody who does snoring surgeries. Very, like, not an attractive topic, right? Like, nobody's like psyched to go do that. But they talked about getting a sleep divorce. I'm ready. Like, if I'm struggling with that, I don't want a sleep divorce, right? Where I'm now sleeping in but this is a normal thing in a lot of families and cultures. Like, if one person snores, they end up having to sleep in a separate room from their partner, their spouse. That sucks. But now we have a name for it, sleep divorce. And that is so powerful because it makes you feel like the actual divorce is what comes next, right? And like, it's using a word that has a lot of weight and pain around it. That's what content IP is. We're just doing it around software, right? But it's still very, very real of like, let's give them the phrases to solve about their problems. Once we have that, and I won't read through this because I do want to make sure that we kind of talk through everything. We're going to solve their problem. Just give them the keys. That's what I'm doing here. This is like the first level of like content IP, right? Or of like how we turn this into content, this demand focused content. I know there's a problem. Now today, I'm just telling you how to solve it. Here's these 4 pieces, right? I do LinkedIn posts about this too. How to solve the roadblock to the problem. So once you know that there's a problem to solve, this is the thing a lot of marketers miss. We never talk about the roadblocks. Once they start trying to solve it on their own, then what happens? Please create that content, right? All of us, because there's a lot of people that are like, yeah, we do this. Kind of, I mean, Katie, kind of to the question you asked me earlier of like, yeah, what about the KPIs? That's the roadblock, right? Like, I should be creating content about the KPIs and OKRs and stuff like that of this framework, because that is the next thing people are going to run into. Happens all the time. Here's some example, like, this is literally just me being satirical on the left around like conversations I have. This is, again, like silly, but like, it's literally me like calling out all the roadblocks you're going to run into. Then a template or framework to solve the problem. With software, almost all of our customers are using spreadsheets to solve the problem before they come to us. They're using some sort of free tool, or they're just using pen and paper, or they're just not dealing with it. So give them something, meet them where they are, give them spreadsheets, give them slides, give them framework. Like, sometimes the framework doesn't have to even be that. Like, I'm giving you a framework today. Here's my 4-part framework for this. But great. That can be exactly like, it's just, here's how to think about this. Sometimes it could be a buyer's guide even, right? Like, give them some sort of thing of that, like, helps them think better, especially in SaaS, helps them think better about what they're trying to accomplish. The next one is a customer case study, like starting to show a customer case study, and not some like highly produced B2B, like boring looking thing, like something that's actually like interesting and compelling, depending on what kind of curiosity levers you're pulling there. Figure out some way to like actually, like, for my work, like, look, it's up into the right graphs. Like, that's what that looks like. Hit them with the, like, that stops the scroll on LinkedIn. If you see an up into the right graph, you're like, wait, what? I want that. How do I get that? And you'll read it. I know that. I'm not trying, again, it's like, it's not manipulative. It's just like the best way to visualize the value of what I'm sharing in that post. Same thing here with your customer case studies. Become obsessed with visualizing the value of what you're sharing. If your post is literally like the customer's face in their logo, that is not the value they got. What value? Visualize the value that they got. That'll stop the scroll. That'll get people to click and whatever else. I'm also not talking about producing some big, boring ass like white paper case study. Like, make it 0-click content. Let them consume it directly on LinkedIn. Let them consume it directly in an email. Don't make them click through. They don't need to download it or put in their email or some other corny thing. Like, just give them the case. It is great marketing, but like, they don't care about your customers' logos. They really don't. They care about like, how does this relate to my work? So the logo only matters in as much as like, if you're B2B, like, is it the same company size? Is that a similar title to mine? That sort of thing. Like, nothing else really matters. Just visualize the value they got. And then the last piece is just like a high level, interesting insight. Like, this is one of my favorite posts I've ever done. Was like, everybody who knows HubSpot is a beast at SEO, but like, what did they do back here? What was going on there? And people were like, oh yeah, like we don't ever talk, like we love talking about this crap, right? And this, like, you know, all these things. But like, what did they do back there? I found an interview with Kieran Flanagan, who was a VP there. He's a CMO at Zapier now. Like, he talked about what they did back then. And I'm like, this is really cool. Let me share this. It's not my client, but I'm still, same thing. This is ConvertKit. This is DataBox. This is Airbnb. I'm just finding cool stuff that helps, that is interesting to my audience, right? Find those things. Find the other people doing neat stuff and share that with them. That you only get this out of like an obsession with your customer. And then the last piece is authority building. I know this has been a lot of me monologuing. I'm hoping and praying, because it would really validate all of my needs for approval and my feelings if you all had some questions here in a minute. But the last piece here is authority building, right? Authority building, for a long time, we thought it was like just link building, and like that could be part of it. Like, backlinks matter for SEO. That's still a big part of what I do. But I think about like bigger than that. Bigger than that, like, how do we become like the journalistic, like, center of the universe for our industry, where everybody wants to be featured, everybody wants to be published? Here's how. We source contributors. These contributors could be, I'll give you some examples of them here in a minute, but we source contributors. We reach out to them and ask them if they would like to contribute. We then have user-generated content. We do social promotion around that stuff. And then there's also like digital PR and content partnerships. Here's what that actually looks like. As an example, let's look at like how DataBox did this. Some of you are probably familiar with DataBox. If you are, you can drop that in the chat, just so I know that I'm telling you probably stuff you already know. But I think DataBox and what John Bonini and Pete did there, a lot of people don't know. If you're familiar with DataBox, a lot of people still familiar with the company don't know that there's a reason that it's so partnership-led. Was because that's what Pete did at HubSpot. Pete was like, hey, I think we should have a partnerships program. And they were like, LOL, okay, good luck with that, Pete. And he was like, all right, cool, like, bet. And he went out and built it. And it was like a huge thing. And now he, at DataBox, a lot of how they've thought about things has been partnerships based. So essentially, like you see on the left, like, this is UGC from me. And then they visualize different things that they can share on social. All of us, like, this is really effective marketing collateral. It does not always need to be like a triple, double blind research-based study to share some stats. I don't care if you surveyed 7 people, share it. It's interesting. It gets a conversation going, right? It gets people to talk about that. Like, it is marketing. It is what we're here to do. So how do we do this? We source those contributors. This is literally my inbox, getting those like weekly emails from DataBox. You can see the dates over there on the right, where they'd just be like, hey, here's like some surveys that we're doing. And they're doing this to produce content. I remember talking to the team there, and they were like, we don't even know like the password for the SEO tools. Like, they knew that if they asked the right customers and asked the right questions and created content around the things people actually had questions around, they would back into the SEO side of things. And they've proven that they're absolutely right. Like, that's still definitely possible. But here's who we talk to. We talk to customers, we talk to partners, we use tools like SparkToro to put together lists of amplifiers and influencers. Shout out SparkToro. It's like one of my favorite secret weapons as a marketer. People who also write about this topic, that have their own websites, people with a large audience, like anybody who has a hot take on this stuff. Like, I want their ideas in here. Anybody who's contrarian, who like has takes on things that other people would disagree with them. I want their ideas in our content. You can send out surveys. You can like really make this robust, right? Like you can see that here on the right, what they're doing 12 surveys at that point in one email. Okay, awesome. Does it have to be that big? No. As a team of one, you could do this once a quarter and then do it once a month going forward. And then maybe it just becomes like what we do. Every time we publish something, we're going to pull. This is something old school bloggers did all the time. They just included quotes from like a bunch of their peers. So it can be super valuable. And then once they give you the quote, if you feature it, right? So not only are you getting like the quotes in there in that UGC, but you're also again getting the data on stuff. If we look back at like the surveys, there's stack ranked, and you're checking off like some of these questions here, like which of the following has your small to medium-sized business experience as a direct result of inflation? Like, wow, that's really cool. They could pitch that stat to media outlets. They could put it on social. It'll go nuts. All sorts of like interesting stuff. But once that goes out, you send them links to engage with your social posts about it. And like all of a sudden you have this really, really helpful flywheel that builds your authority. It makes you like the go-to place to be cited. People want to be at the forefront of their industry. And if you become your industry's best media outlet, the best newspaper, you hear all this hype around like become a media company, but nobody talks about how. They just think like make a bunch of podcasts, basically. Let's do a bunch of generic shitty interviews. No, like let's actually pull people into our content. So I think that was a lot. And I hope that me sharing like genuinely behind the scenes was helpful. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I hope that that is helpful and valuable and at least gives you a little bit of ways to think about how you're doing work and maybe how it can be more effective.
There you go. That was amazing. Thank you.
Did we do it? I like feel like I blacked out there for a little bit.
No, it was so good. I already actually had a bunch of people just message me. The Zoom is great. This is awesome. Yeah, that's amazing. So I do have a few questions for you.
Okay.
So yay. So one of the things that's kind of been like popping up all over LinkedIn is like the influencer marketing and like partnering with influencers. And one of the things that you talked about was like building partnerships just a little bit. How do you recommend someone go about partnering with influencers to help kind of get more of like the brand awareness out there for them?
Ooh, I love this question. And you can see people who are running this, right? Like you can see, like if you look at my profile, like you can see there's a company that I'm an advisor for Novatic, and like I work with them because I love their product. I love what it like. I think everybody who works in software marketing, whether you're sales led or product led or some mix therein, should be using Novatic. It's the best. But the way that I work with people on stuff like this is I like to go all in on things. So you're not gonna like sponsor a post with me. Like I'm not Kim Kardashian. When I work with somebody, I want to be able to talk about you in an event like this and feel like that's like part of what we're doing. It's an actual partnership, right? Talk about them in the newsletter, on social, in my community. Like I bring all of that in. So I think like the way that I might start is talk to the people who buy your stuff, find out who they follow and where they follow them, right? That's super important. Get that qualitative piece. Then maybe if you want to go on the quantitative side, go into SparkToro, look for people who have a certain, if you're B2B, you can look for people who use a certain job title in their like bio. And then you can see who they follow on every platform. What podcasts do they listen to? What YouTube channels are they subscribed to? That sort of thing. And then you start to paint this web of like, all right, here's who we should probably work with. And who could probably like, whatever. I think that's the best way to start. And I think the best way to start is also like finding like champions you already have. Like who's doing this for free? Can we pay them? Can we make them? If you're building like a customer advisory board or you have one, like they might be a great group to start with. Like who was already let's say LinkedIn, let's say we're B2B and like LinkedIn is a big channel for you. Who's already posting on there every day? Doesn't matter if they have a big audience, but like who's on there trying stuff? I want that. Right? So I would definitely start there. Look at who you already have and then find out who you can add by talking to customers and then stack on top like a SparkToro or some sort of audience research tool.
Awesome. That is super helpful. Okay, cool. Okay, here's a great question. Thank you, Ms. Page. Hi there, huge fan and super interesting chat. I have a question about building content for brand new sites with little authority. What is the best way to go about creating bottom of funnel content based on ICP pain points and trying to rank amongst competitors with higher authority? Does this come down to the promotion like you spoke about in the authority building section?
Yeah, so Paige, that's an awesome question. And also I'm a huge fan of you. The way that I would think about it is let's like SEO is not always the right play for every company. And I think like when you get romantic about channels, right? Like when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail kind of thing, right? Like you would talk to an SEO person, they're like, the solution to everything is SEO. Weird, right? But I think if you are a brand new website, that probably also means you're a brand new business. So there are other channels that you're going to get way more out of. And I would spend more on that like authority building piece on the like revenue focused content side. I don't know. I feel like the four pieces I laid out here would be perfect for a new company. Now, in a world where like you can't do everything all at once, if we're talking content specifically, I would really focus on stuff that does like triple or quadruple duty, like things that do more than one thing. Could this at some point back into search traffic? Yes, good. Okay, that's one. Could this be email content? Great, two. Could this also do well on social? Yes, three. Could this also be sales enablement? If we have a sales team, are they going to want to send this out to prospects or leads, like people that are already engaged? If we have a BDR team, are they going to want to use this in reaching out to people? Is this a great hey, we have this like really cool thing I wanted to show you that everybody loves, that sort of thing. Like if your content you're creating does 5 things, like all of a sudden you have friends and champions on the sales team, you have people like all of that sort of stuff. I also think, again, if you're early on, like aligning to like what matters most, right? Are we focused on customer retention right now? Are we focused on profitability? Are we, focused on like new logo addition? That sort of stuff matters, making sure you're aligned there. But beyond that, yeah, I think it's just hard. Like when you're a new website, there has to be some sort of growth lever that you pull that is not just like the way that, like you can't steal like Monday.com's SEO strategy because they're a blitz scaling company and they spent like $12 million on their SEO program. It's absurd. So yeah, I hope that's helpful.
That's amazing. I do have one more question, but we are actually out of time. So hopefully that person will ask it in the community.
Ask it in the community because we're
there
in there.
we go.
That's why we're here. All right.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I mean, this was such an amazing session. I know I learned so much. I've already, like I said, been getting so many messages, but thank you. We really appreciate you. And just have a great rest of your day, everyone. See you in the demand community.
See you, everybody.